call the meeting to order. We'll start with the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Andy has something.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Sorry that we don't have a big, huge audience here tonight, but before we get started, there's some congratulations that are in order this evening. First, the board would like to congratulate Carol Bright and her staff for the receipt of the Distinguished Budget Award from the Government Finance Officers Association for the budget year of 2013-14. Thank you for your professionalism and a job well done. So. And next, after 12 years of service on the Housing Authority Board, including as board chair, Mr. Moore was recognized for his many years of service recently. The Community Center at the Stevens Creek Crossing has been named the Lee E. Moore Senior Opportunity Center in his honor. We're proud to have him as our general manager and pleased to see his long service to the community be recognized with such an honor. Thank you for all you do, and our sincere congratulations on a well-deserved award. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, our next agenda item is public comment. See nobody jumping up and down to testify, so we'll go on to action items. Item number 1, resolution 15-2014.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt resolution number 15-2014, amending miscellaneous fees and charges.
Second.
Carol.
Good evening, Carol Wright, CFO. Every year, we bring to the board the miscellaneous fees and charges if there are any adjustments. All of these fees and charges are set to recover CRW's cost to provide that service. We do include in the overall booklet the...
Mr. Chair, a point of order here. We didn't do a roll call for attendance.
Roll call.
You might want to have that for the record.
Okay.
Yeah.
Roll call. Okay. Commissioner Humbertson?
Present.
Commissioner Twani?
Here.
Commissioner McNeil?
Here.
And Commissioner Sola?
Aye.
And President Sterling is absent. So 4 commissioners present.
Okay, we will be talking about the system development charges rates at a later meeting, and also water rates is an upcoming topic, but it won't be included in the miscellaneous fees and charges. We do have 3 changes from the fees and charges as they were presented last year. The first of the changes is to add some new equipment. We received some emergency management equipment via grants. The assets were actually given to CRW, so those were included as a donation of assets. So those items have been added to the list and have been given a charging rate of time, materials, and overhead. So the length of time the equipment's used, any overhead or any other costs, any other materials that go with that will be charged to anybody who needs to use it. The emergency preparedness stuff is likely to be used by other agencies when they suffer an emergency. Although as holders of this equipment, we have kind of first right of refusal. If we're all suffering an emergency, we get first dibs at it. Additionally, we removed 2 dams from the list. Much of the equipment that's on the list is not really for use by others, but when we do private projects and we utilize that equipment, we charge that out to others. But the 2 bands that we sold as surplus last year, we have taken those off of the list. And we changed the after-hours non-emergency call-out fee from a flat $100 to a minimum $100 charge. So if our guys get called out when it's not an emergency situation, we notify the customer that they will be responsible for paying the district $100, and if they end up staying for a long period of time, it can be more than that. So those are the only changes that we've made on miscellaneous fees and charges for this year.
Any questions or comments?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Public comment? Seeing none. All those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye when the roll is called, and those opposed say no.
Commissioner Hubbardston?
Aye.
Commissioner Kalani?
Aye.
Commissioner McNeil?
Aye.
Commissioner Soa?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Number 2, scheduled rate hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I don't see a draft motion, but I would move to approve the rate hearing schedule as presented by Ms. Bright.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have sent notices to CRW customers and with a scheduled rate hearing to discuss options and for the board, give the board an opportunity to listen to public input on March 17th. What we will be presenting are the options that were presented to the board at the work session in January, but I would like some feedback from the board as to any specific alternatives that they would like to see with regard to the rate structure. And I have heard back from about a dozen customers, and not all negative. We had one customer who believes that our water here at Clackamas River Water is the best water in the state of Oregon, and she has no concern about the rates. We do have other people that obviously don't want to see a rate increase, and I'll share all of that information with the board at the rate hearing.
Great.
Yes.
We had a conversation earlier, Carol, about base rate, and I've talked to Ken some about that. What I'm concerned about with how we do our rates, having been here a while now, is that we're so dependent on what the weather does. If the weather is cool and wet during the summer and we don't sell enough water, we're in trouble. And that makes it hard for you and certainly our engineering staff to be able to predict, what kind of revenue we're gonna have, schedule projects, and do those kind of things. And I see it as being very disruptive to the operations of the district. And so I'd be interested in seeing some scenarios on splitting up whatever increase we do, 50-50 maybe, part of the base rate, part on the water rate, and see what happens. The other problem with loading all of your rate increases on water usage is customers that have the decision whether to use it or not use it. That also causes problems for us. At a certain point in time, if we just keep loading all of our rate increases on rate, people are gonna go, yes, we're not gonna water the lawn, we're not gonna do this, and we're not gonna wash the car here, and whatever they do with their water. And again, that impacts planning and all those things that we try to do here, and we have to figure out how to balance that. And I'm not sure what the answer is for sure, but I'd like to see some numbers.
Okay. A little perspective on that. In the year 2000 was when the base rate for a bi-monthly three-quarter meter went up to $11.70. So that's for a 2-month period, and that's certainly not enough secure, known revenue to cover our cost of delivering water. Because frankly, it doesn't cost a lot less to deliver a small quantity of water to a customer than it does to deliver a larger quantity. About 75 to 80% of our total costs are essentially fixed. They are not necessarily based on the volumes of water. We do have certain fees that are.
Sure.
Depending on how much water we make.
Well, there's additional
electricity.
Yeah, right. There's additional cost to pump more water.
Right.
Right. Wear and tear on the pumps and that kind of stuff. But there's a certain cost to provide the service to a customer so that they know that when they turn the faucet on, there's going to be water coming out. And that's the part that I don't think we recover enough of the cost of that to make sure that, after hearing all the stuff that Bob and all the guys have told us about what we have for future need just to keep the ability to turn the tap on and have water come out, we're in trouble if we don't figure out how to keep that list that Bob keeps massaging moving forward. I mean, I think he's done a great job informing us on what the potential needs are, and now it's our job to figure out how we're going to work with staff to come up with, you know, an acceptable way to cover those costs. And if we want to do any of those things on the south side of the district to ensure that we're using our water, then we have to figure out how to do that.
And we certainly are looking at the chart of our fees compared with our neighbors. Our fixed portion, the bottom portion of that chart is quite low.
Mm-hmm.
So others are beginning to modify their rate structure to ensure that they cover more of their fixed costs. They're still not covering all of them, and that would, you know, we don't need to cover all of them because there always will be some consumption, but we need to find that balance.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Larry.
I thought we did schedule a second hearing on rates.
There's a rate hearing proposed for March 17th, and then the second hearing and adoption would be March 31st. That's what the proposal is.
Yes, that's correct.
That was on the screen.
Okay.
Wasn't made it clear. Any more comments or questions? Any comments from the public? Seeing none, we'll have a vote. All those in favor of the motion after roll call, please say yes. Those opposed say no.
Commissioner Henderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Kalani?
Aye.
Commissioner McNeil?
Aye.
Commissioner Soa?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Item number 3, approved professional services contract.
Mr. Chairman, move to approve the general manager sign the contract for landscaping services with Crystal Greens Landscape Incorporated for not to exceed an amount of $60,000.
Second.
Any comments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask the general manager a question.
Okay.
How does this compare with our previous year's contract? And
Our staff are really our buyer. We've been working on the landscape contracts for about 5 years now. And we have brought those costs down from the high of, I believe it was about $138,000, $128,000 when we first started this, to what you see here before you is $60,000.
and last year's was how much?
And last year was closer to $90,000. So what we've done is, and this is the same contractor. So what we've done is gotten that contractor through the use of competitive bidding to narrow his costs down to the amount that you see before you.
Any more comments or questions? Public comment? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote. Those to approve will say yes, and those opposed say no.
Commissioner Henderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Kalani?
Aye.
Commissioner McNeil?
Aye.
Commissioner Soa?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Number 4, resolution 16-2014.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve Resolution 16-2014 establishing the CRWSC Activity Fund.
Second.
Carol.
What this resolution does is authorizes the addition of a fund within the CRW accounting. And this would be a mechanism to track all of the expenditures and perhaps revenues from the Clackamas Regional Water Supply Commission that are being paid and received at the CRW level.
a question. When we originally talked about this, we were going to transfer money from the Boundary Protection Fund to this fund. I assume the Boundary Protection Fund is general fund money, so that's what this resolution says.
Yes, we have another resolution to follow this that identifies the transfer and the appropriation.
Any more comments or questions? Public comment? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote. Those in favor say aye, those opposed say no.
Commissioner Humberstone?
Aye.
Commissioner Kwame?
Aye.
Commissioner Newell?
Aye.
Commissioner Sella?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Number 5, resolution 17-2014.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board approve resolution number 17-2014, authorizing an appropriation transfer from the general fund to the CRWSC activity fund for fiscal year 2013 and 2014.
Any comments or questions?
Second. Second.
I was a point of order.
Yeah, so is that.
This motion says, from material and service money, it's the same thing as the Boundary Protection Fund.
Yes, the boundary protection line item is within materials and services of the general fund. So we will remove $1,000 from that fund and move it over to the CRWSC activity fund. We don't anticipate spending very much money between now and June 30th. The commission approved a null budget for this period of time, but this gives us a little bit of money should we need some administrative payments to be made between now and June 30th. When we have the budget committee, we will include this new fund as part of the budget for next year, and that'll have more activity in it based on the commission budget.
Thank you. Any more comments or questions? Public comment? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote. Those in favor say aye, those opposed say no.
Commissioner Humberstone?
Aye.
Commissioner Kalani?
Aye.
Commissioner McNeil?
Aye.
Commissioner Sella? Motion carries 4-0.
Number 6, report from the executive session. Who's giving that, Cam?
I hadn't anticipated being the one to give that, so I am not prepared to actually give that report.
Okay, I can put you up.
Could you do it? Sure. If I'm expected to do that in the future, could I get a heads up? Then I'll be happy to do it. I just didn't pick up on it, so thank you.
I was following the lead of our leader, so.
That's okay.
You want to keep you on your toes.
That works.
Lee, go ahead.
This is a, as you know, the board knows, and maybe members of the public, that Oregon City has implemented a right-of-way usage fee in the amount of 6%. And they did it without much notice and really didn't put us in a situation where we could do much planning. This is an issue because it had legal implications that was appropriately discussed in executive session. The issues before us is that the board a while back had basically taken the position that any time that we are confronted with extraordinary fees by cities, that we would pass those fees on to the ratepayers affected and note in our billing the source of the fees and what they're for. In this particular case, we had some issues with a compounding effect of the fee. What I mean by that is CRW is being charged directly this fee. Oregon City has advised us that they're charging themselves this fee. And we now know that South Fork Water Board, from whom we buy water, is being assessed this fee. So essentially, it's a compounded fee from where we sit. We did comply by filing the appropriate paperwork, but we did that under protest as directed by the board. And so the issue now is, which is really kind of a policy decision for the board, is how do we administer that fee in terms of who and how do we assess this? Do we assess it to all of the ratepayers in our southern service area? And do we pass those costs through? Or do we only assess it to those ratepayers that reside within the city limits of Oregon City? And there may be some other combinations that I haven't thought about, but in essence, that's the issue before the board now. Staff didn't put a motion before you, because we felt, based upon the conversations that we've had, that this is something that the board needed to discuss, if you would, and give us direction based upon that. So, I don't know, Bob, did I leave anything out? Because Bob has been working, yes.
I believe you left out the third alternative, which
Okay.
would be to charge all the ratepayers that are affected by the new rate, which means if a ratepayer receives their water to a line that goes through Oregon City, that we consider passing the
Yes, yes, that's correct.
rate increase on to them.
Right. Bob has worked as best he could with the city staff in trying to, first of all, understand what was happening. We were confusing it with franchise fees. And we've been corrected that this is really a right-of-way fee. But it's interesting, in all communications that I see going about out there, it's still referred to as a franchise fee, although by the ordinance, it's a right-of-way fee. I think we probably are in agreement that this is probably a revenue grab, and it doesn't matter much what it's called. It is what it is, and so. Bob, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
There's one option I did add to the discussion that wasn't really covered in the executive that we talked about, was what if we were to spread the cost of this usage fee over the entire district, not just the south side. And that was option one. I put that one out there for at least on the table to be aware of it. And the reason I did that was, in the future, there will be other cities that may use usage fee. And there may be a time in the future we might look at all these franchise fees as all encompassing and share the cost. That's why I put that one in. But that's the future that I did put on the table for discussion. The other two are the ones we talked about, the ones mentioned, and then the one Mr. Lee also mentioned was just inside Oregon City customers. So that's the three options that I summarized here in the agenda.
There is a dynamic that as we withdraw customers, the amount of that fee will change, okay? I'm trying to think if there's anything else there that may affect the fee. Well, there is a, 2.5% escalator, COLA provision that's built into the fee rate as well.
Is it 2.5 or 3?
3.5.
Oh, that's 3.
Oh, it's 3.
That's
Three.
right.
That's what I thought.
3.5, so every year, this fee will increase.
But I would like to point out also, I am working with Oregon City, or CRW is working with Oregon City, trying to identify customers that are somewhat kind of islands. They're fairly deep in Oregon City, where both city mains and CRW mains exist. Some of these island customers are still hooked to us, which are inside cities. They need to be transferred to Oregon City lines. So we're working with Oregon City to identify those, and in the near future, that's my goal, to have those starting to be transferred from our line to Oregon City lines. They've been annexed by Oregon City to provide service. They have not been withdrawn yet, that's another issue, but, so they're still within our district. But based on why they're being annexed in the city and the city wanting to provide full service, it's time that these, I'll call them island customers, but they're out in the fringe where we don't serve anymore. Excuse me. We serve them, but they are, they're really an Oregon City customer, should be. And so that 206 number of customers, I believe will drop dramatically this next year, which will affect that option if you just go with the 206. Honestly, it will make it difficult to track that type of recovery of the cost. Every 2 months, every 4 months, that number will change, and then we would have to recalculate if we're trying to truly recover the $15,000. So I'm kind of sharing with you my heartache and finance's heartache of trying to track that type of mechanism or that process or that logic.
So if I hear you right, the administrative cost for Carol and you to try to figure out what the recovery number really is may approach the $15,000 in time.
We charge them back.
That has not been factored into the numbers that we put in front of you.
Right.
It would not be 15,000, but it would just be this every quarter, having to go back through all the calculations, figure everything out, how many came out, recalculate it. Then, do we have to bring it back to the board for the new rate before we can charge the usage fee for the last quarter? I'm not sure how that would work. Whereas if we used the option of the south side customers, taking 20 or 30 or 15 customers out of the formula wouldn't hurt how much we recover as greatly as the 206 customer option. That makes sense in what I said there?
You end up with less administrative costs than recalculating, if any.
If any, and we recoup as much as we can within the 1 year, and then next year we recalculate that usage fee, come back to you with a 3% change, new customer count, and recalculate that usage fee each year. I think we're going to be there anyway every year, recalculating a number, because the 3% increase every year is going to change the amount. So we'll be back to you, I assume, every year for that fee.
For that adoption. Yeah, for that adoption.
Well, the one fact that neither yours or Lee mentioned, I don't think, is there's a flat fee of $15,000. Doesn't make any difference whether you have 1 foot of pipes or up to a certain number. It's still $15,000 plus a 3% increment, a 3.5% increment.
Okay, just some clarification there. In the resolution and the lineal foot calculation, they have 4 fees. 0 feet to 5,000 feet, 5,000 to 10,000, 10,000 to 20,000, and over 20,000 feet. We're over 20,000 feet, and that's the $15,000 fee. If we had less footage, we would be in the other categories.
Yeah.
So our minimum based on footage, 15,000, because our gross revenue is $6,000, and you have to pay them the higher of the 2 calculations. Gross revenues for linear footage. In our case, footage is the calculation. So each year, it'll be 3% more based on the way they've written their ordinance.
Isn't this in the Court of Appeals right now, this concept, not necessarily Oregon specifically, but, or Oregon City specifically, but
This right-of-way fees are not within the Court of Appeals. Franchise fees are within the Court of Appeals. I suspect that's why the League of Oregon Cities is encouraging its membership to use the term right-of-way fee.
Arose by any other name. The thing I have trouble with, if we put a new piece of equipment in the system, a pipe in the ground or a new pump, repair and upgrade the treatment plant or any of those kinds of things, I don't have any problem at all spreading that cost over every single customer that we have. Because everybody benefits from that, whether that pipe got put in the south end of the district or the north end of the district, whatever. I have a hard time with the idea of charging everybody in the entire district on something that is essentially a revenue grab by one city. That I have a hard time with, personally. I suspect that the community of Oregon City probably is not particularly aware of what's going on with this. And I don't think they're going to get aware unless the people who are actually directly affected get hit with a significant enough fee that they go, what in the heck are you people doing? So at the moment, I lean towards option number 3, even though I understand the administrative aspect of that is cumbersome. But it's if those people that live in Oregon City, that are the voters of Oregon City, who can speak to their city council directly about this, aren't made aware of it and feel it, why would they do it? And so we would sit here stuck with this fee with no recourse, both legally and or politically. So that's kind of the problem I have with this.
If I could kind of go with kind of what you were saying, I guess that's a frustration for me is, and the problem with fees, the ratepayers or taxpayers, either one, who elect the city council in Oregon City didn't get to vote on this and will never get to vote on this, ever. They have crafted this fee for use of their right-of-way in such a way that it circumvents the entire process that is normally used when you do these kind of things anywhere. And it just really bothers me. I think for that same reason, because our ratepayers have no ability to vote on the city councilors in Oregon City in any way, shape, or form, even if they write letters, they a lot of times aren't even given to the city councilors. The only way for us to have a squeak in the thing is to have the people that can make a difference, try to make a difference. And I don't know how else to do it. It just, fees like this, I think, are the way of the future. I think, especially because if you understand how the property tax thing under Measure 5 was set up, there are entities that are either in compression or soon to be in compression, and are only receiving percentages of what they thought they were going to get for budgets, and governments that are in that spot will look for any way they can raise revenue. And I agree with you, I don't believe it. Anybody that I've talked to in Oregon City doesn't know anything about this. So they have done nothing to, I haven't seen it in the newspapers. Anybody seen it in the newspaper? I haven't.
Can I ask
a question? A couple. First of all, there's 200 and some odd citizens that they could be transferred over to Oregon City. Oregon City has the capability of providing them water?
I didn't say all 206.
Oh.
I said there are customers that will reduce the number of 206 downward as we start identifying these. And I probably have 30 or 40 that I'm aware of that could be transferred and should be transferred to Oregon City because they have neighbors in front of their homes.
Okay, if we do one of the things that was suggested, that those people that we do provide water that are in Oregon City, then their bills would go up exorbitantly if they were chained with this whole thing, with the whole expense. Those, what, 200 people or whatever, are ratepayers. That's one option. The other is suggested that it goes through, spread out throughout all of our ratepayers. Everybody, north and south. Several years ago, there was a big whoop-de-doo about the rate differential between the north and the south of the river. That was resolved so that everybody now pays the same general rate, depending on usage and the classification. So if we go and split the district up in north and south again, the way it was, it seems like that would cause a lot of, well, it did cause a lot of problems, dissension at that time, and we'd just be getting back into that if we have that separation in rates. It seems, I'm just thinking off the top, listening to some of this that's going on. The other, one other thing is that I believe somebody mentioned earlier that there was a possibility of a suit in one of the other counties or down south, a city. They were talking about a suit for against right-of-way fees, not right-of-way fees, franchise fees. So then the city apparently has changed this to a right-of-way usage fee. Now, some of the other areas where I've worked, they had a similar thing, but it was only on a specific project. For instance, if, let's say Fred Meyers had moved in like they did, and they came in, they had to dig up the roadway, then the fee was strictly related to that project. And once it was completed and accepted by the county or the city, that was it.
So it was a one-time fee?
A one-time fee only on that specific project related to whatever the development was. And
That's what we do today.
yeah, that's typical for, I think, or it was typical throughout the state as far as I know.
I'd like to point out, Oregon City is not backing off their other fees for inspection, plan review, construction, and drawing review, and all those. Those will stay in place.
So it's a double whammy then. Because I know on the others projects I've worked on, the fee that you sent in, that you were required to pay upfront, the owner of the project, it included all the fees related to that project. Inspection, generally they provided their own engineering, but if not, the engineering was included in that. And in this case, it's, you get hit for the whole thing, and it isn't, you're paying it over and over and over is what it amounts to. That,
At a higher rate of 3% a year.
right.
Well, I agree with Ken on not spreading it throughout the district, the fee, but I tend to zero in a little more, saying that rate increase should go to all the people that use water that goes through the pipes that are in Oregon City.
That's option two.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman. Just for a sense of perspective, so that we know what we're talking about money-wise, every other month is our billing cycle. So if you went with option one, it would cost 20.5 cents per bill. If you went with option two, it's 54 cents per bill. And option number three, which takes it to just those 206 people, it's $12 per bill. The advantage of the $12 per bill, obviously, is that if I saw a $12 charge like that on my bill, I'd be making some noise at the city council meeting. Mm-hmm. So politically, it has some advantages. We seem to be in agreement that spreading it throughout the entire district is probably not fair to people who don't even come close to living in Oregon City. 54 cents, most of us will swallow 54 cents and move on and not even think about it, but that leaves us with the disadvantage of who's gonna put pressure on Oregon City Council. But that's kind of what our options are.
So I have one other question. So we assess the whole amount, $50,000 on anybody that has a piece of pipe that goes to Oregon City that uses that water,
That's 54 cents.
right? But I see a rather sticky wicket here, because eventually there will be a rate, probably a right-of-way fee in some other city on the north side. So what are you gonna do? You're gonna have these folks all the time trying to figure out which water went through this pipe for this city, and your rate's gonna be this, and now Oregon City's rate is this, and it's gonna be this, and it has to be updated every year, and we're gonna be having all these different rate things. That's crazy. That's just nuts. I mean, I can't imagine these people trying to go, oh, man, that water went through Milwaukee, and then it went over here to this, and it might have gone over here, and let's try to figure out how, what fed Happy Valley and what it fed. I don't know, it's crazy.
Can we hear more from staff?
Just a response to that, I have looked at that, and because the way our system's set out, it is simplified. On the south side, it's one area. Everybody basically in the south side is touched by the Oregon City boundary. That's the way it is. On the north side, whether it's Happy Valley, the counties, Milwaukee, everybody is touched by the system. We're talking the reservoirs, the pump stations, and the distribution. So if something happened on the north side, the recommendation would be like B. Everybody that touches the water system in the north would be assessed that usage fee. So Happy Valley, everybody in our north-south system, the whole system is continuous. There's no reason, you wouldn't go over to Happy Valley 6 homes and assess that type of, because that's what's gonna happen is, well, I won't get in all of it. I'm getting down the weeds, but basically, if Milwaukee and Happy Valley did this sort of thing, we would combine it, assess it in the north side, if that's the type of option you wanna do, and the north side would see their usage fee rate at a certain rate combined. South side would have, well, there's only Oregon City. Okay,
But-
unless the county.
There you go.
Now,
If the county
did
assesses a
one-
right-of-way fee.
So
then
we
you're
have
gonna-
a North County amount and a South County amount. And the north and south, because of where they live within the boundaries, and that's just the way life is, they would have different usage fees. That would be one way to look at it. And again, it wouldn't be hard to do the calculation, other than we'd have to be touching it once a year, looking at the new rate, bringing it forward to you, and then including the billing,
So
or
if you had,
figuring the gross revenues, or the total linear fee, and will always probably be linear foot. Well, I don't know. Depends on how they set up the rates in the
that's how
north.
they structure the fee.
Gross versus linear feet.
But, so if you had a county fee and a Happy Valley fee, would you charge the people in Happy Valley the Happy Valley fee plus the county fee?
Well, if they're in Happy Valley, they're not in the county.
Yes, they are.
Not the usage fee, because I would then have to figure out who controls which right-of-ways. Like in Oregon City, Beaver Creek Road is an ODOT highway.
No, it's not, it's county.
Excuse me, it's county road, excuse me. I always do that to you, don't I? It's a county road, so I don't include that in the calculations for total linear foot for Oregon City. Now, I still haven't had one discussion with Oregon City, as I have these service lines, these copper service lines on the road. Do those count as lines? I haven't had that discussion.
If they haven't said anything, don't bring it up.
But I would, because I'm already at the maximum, I didn't worry about it. But if I was real close to the edge of one of the other
Yeah.
criteria,
Yeah.
I've been on the phone a long time ago, I need clarification. Do drops, like phone drops,
Yeah.
is my service line a drop, or is it a main line? Do you count as a facility? It's not clear in the,
Ordinance.
ordinance. So those would be further questions. And so in the north, I will have to figure out where the highways are, county roads, who has control of each, so I can calculate total linear footage in which entity. So can I do that? Yes, because we have all the shape files. It would just take a few days. Once you figure it out, it's pretty easy to do. But it would take a day or two to sort all that out and then come up with, usage or gross type of, or linear foot versus gross. It's all relatively doable, so it doesn't get too crazy, but it takes us some effort. I did want to point out,
I suspect that, like most fees like this, at some point in time, the abuse will occur, and this will get resolved. Because you also have the issue of every jurisdiction may not administer their fee in the same way. And we're gonna be in a situation where if one city says, well, we're only gonna charge 4%, somebody else says we're gonna charge more. I don't know the source of the 6%, you know, but somebody along the way will abuse it. And it'll become a problem, in my opinion. And so,
Okay, that's a good point. And that was something I was thinking about, that the legislature is adjourned now, and they'll be coming back. It might behoove us, or a group of us, to find a lobbyist or one of the legislators that can help write a bill, a measure to put through there, to stop this nonsense, or at least to even it out, make it more reasonable.
well, we have a lobbyist through SDAO for special districts. And we seem to be the one that's being chartered with administering this fee, so we might want to advance that notion there. This fee, the template for this fee has come from the League of Oregon Cities. They're the one that put it together, and people are choosing to administer it or not. Probably a legislative session might be one alternative if you could get enough people interested in doing it, so.
Well, we've had a lengthy discussion. Let's see if we can get a motion for one way or the other, or a motion to send this back to staff for more work. So, somebody want to try to make a motion? And we'll hear from Carol after the motion is made.
Okay. I was thinking, Mr. Chairman, if it pleases the chair, I'll simply start with number one, make a motion. If it's seconded, we take a vote. If it doesn't pass, we move to number two. Same process, move to number three. Whichever one passes is the one that passes.
But you read number one then?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move to allocate the usage fee over the entire customer base. No second.
No second.
That's for lack of a second. Mr. Chairman, I move to allocate the usage fee over the customer base where the district's distribution mains pass through the city limits, option number 2.
I'll second.
No second.
Carol?
I just wanted to say that as this is administered, I see it as being a separate line item on the bill, similar to some of the franchise fee charges you might see on your telephone bill or another bill. So it would be a separate line item. I would also anticipate creating a separate revenue line item in our financial system so that we can look at the amount that we are billing compared with the amount that we need to pay to Oregon City, so that we would be able to see, you know, how close we were getting to that 15,000 and if we needed to adjust numbers.
Well, I agree with the line item on the bill, but I also would like to see that at the bottom of the bill saying an explanation why we're charging this extra fee.
This right-of-way usage fee brought to you
Try
by the
not to
city of
use-
Oregon City.
Try not to use words that our good member from Oregon City used, and that's stupid. So, tell me exactly what you're proposing now.
I moved on the second item, which is allocate the usage fee over the customer base where the district's distribution mains pass through the city limits, option number 2. I moved, you seconded.
Oh, there was a second on number 2?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear that.
Well, before we vote, we'll have public comment.
I was just questioning the amount of that, Mr. Chair.
I can respond to that, Mr. Chairman. That would be 54 cents every other month. In other words, 54 cents on the bill for a total of, just a moment, $3.26 per customer per year,
Thank
which
you.
essentially is everybody in the south side of the district.
Thank you.
Seeing no more public comment or questions, we'll have a roll call vote. Those in favor say aye, those opposed say no.
Commissioner Humbleston.
Aye.
Commissioner Kalani.
Aye.
Commissioner McNeil.
No.
Commissioner Soa.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-1.
We'll now go on to the consent agenda. Have a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor say aye, those opposed say no.
You want a roll call or?
No, just voice.
Aye.
Aye. We'll now go on to informational reports. Carol.
We'll start with the accounts receivable aging. This is the utility bill aging. The balance as of February 28th was $1,157,000. We send bills out on February 28th, so that includes all the current billing cycles. The balance is about $8,000 greater than the balance of the December billing. Not really a significant change, and it's hard that was people having company, changing in demographics. We didn't really have any hot weather for people to water. It just had a little bit higher usage. Based on the collections that we've received since February 28th, our balance is currently at about $580,000. On our cash and investment position, as of February 28th, during the month we did transfer $300,000 from the local government investment pool to the general checking account to cover some of the capital improvement expenses that we were incurring. Most of those related to the emergency generator project, although there were some other capital projects that had bills that came due. And this month I'd like to go a little bit more into detail on our cash position and what that money is for. You might look at this balance and go, wow, we've got almost $8 million, that's really good, you know, no worries, no problems. The unrestricted, the completely unrestricted portion of that at February 28th was $59,000. It's actually more than that now because we've collected a lot on the bills. We do have a balance in the general fund reserve balance for our operating costs. That's what we would expect to have as our ending fund balance when we get to June 30th, and that's about $1.9 million. In our capital reserve fund, we have $3.7 million. Some of that this year yet will be used to pay for capital improvement projects. We have about $403,000 in our revenue bond fund, and that is sitting in that fund to comply with our debt covenant requirements, one of which that will keep our final payment available. The rate stabilization fund has $1,100,000 in it. That's money that we can use should the revenues not come in to make up a deficit in our revenues to meet the debt covenant compliances. We have used some of that money in the past couple of years. We don't anticipate having to use any of that this year. And if we did, we'd bring it to the board because we would have to transfer that into the general fund so that we could count it. And then our system development charges reserve fund is down to about $440,000. And that money has been used for capital projects as well as a portion of the debt service. Looking at the balance that we have now going forward, we will probably pay all of the debt service from general fund money rather than using system development reserves. capital projects have been a greater dollar amount than the system development revenues that have been coming in. So now on to the budget to actual comparisons. Here's January 2014 compared with prior years through their Januaries. And so you can see that our revenue is doing pretty well. And last year, our August bill, there was significantly more consumption than the prior year August. So combined with the rate increase, the revenues are doing pretty well. This chart includes the SDC revenues, which is that greenish colored sliver at the top, which is not a huge amount, but we are meeting our projections for this year with the system development charges. And here's our expenditures again through January in all 5 comparative years. And so you can see that we're about the same as we were in fiscal 2012 at this point in time. And here's a chart that is the percentage of budget that we've spent or received. We're at 58.3% of the way through the budget as of January 31st. And an interesting thing to me as I looked at this, the water sales in January of last year, we were at 62.24% of budget, and this year we're at 62.29. We're really close as far as tracking to our budgeted cost. Personnel services, again, the number is very, very close. Materials and services is a little higher this year. And capital outlay, you really can't compare that very well because those are those items that are greater than 5,000, longer life than 1 year, and so you spend the money in chunks. But we're still doing fine within the budgeted cost. We're under the 58%. I'd be happy to answer any questions or go back to any slides that anybody would like to look at.
Any questions?
Just one, Mr. Chairman. Do you anticipate us once again coming in under budget this year at the end of the fiscal year?
We came in under budget last year by a little bit, not a lot. I think that looks towards the fact that we were able to budget pretty well. We have had some unusual items come up this year. I do think we will be under budget. If we're not going to be, I'll come to the board and ask for a budget adjustment if something else happens that we can't absorb. But I do think that we'll be under budget, but I think it'll be pretty close.
Thank you.
That includes your report?
That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Manager report?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It seems like I've seen the board quite a bit this month, working on various things, going to various meetings. One of the things that we've been working on, I think collectively, is this LUBA case that had been filed by Oregon City as it relates to the 190 agreement that we have with Sunrise. And Sunrise has been very supportive in terms of they have attended all the meetings that we've had with Oregon City and have followed through on their commitment to absorb a portion of the cost for any legal fees as well. So that has gone on. On February 25th, the Clackamas Regional Water Supply Commission met and discussed this issue. And we responded to a return correspondence that we received from Oregon City that, for lack of a better word, that was lacking and didn't seem to, didn't reflect those items that we had agreed to in the meeting. And essentially, we advised our council that to tell Oregon City that we were rejecting their proposal and that as an organization they needed to do whatever it is they thought they needed to do. We received a call, I believe last Thursday, requesting a follow-up meeting from Oregon City with the same parties that attended the previous meeting. And they wanted it ASAP. And so yesterday, Commissioner Humbertson and the chair and general manager of Sunrise and myself went to a meeting. They also requested that we bring our attorneys along, which we refused to do. The belief that whether or not we bring our attorneys is really our decision, not somebody else.
That was very politely said. I think I was a little more blunt than that, but.
If the attorneys capture what we agreed to yesterday, we should be able to avoid LUBA. That Oregon City has represented that they will withdraw their LUBA complaint. I do get the sense that they feel that that is some kind of a trump card or something, which maybe the nicest way to say we weren't that impressed with. Because we don't think that this issue, the 190, is a LUBA issue. It's not a land use issue. We, in our conversations, basically there was 4 items that we discussed, and it seemed as if we began to make headway when we took the term water authority off the table. And what we talked about is what is there within the water authority designation that you're trying to gain by opposing really the action of 2 duly elected bodies coming together to do what a 190 is supposed to do. They believed that there was some intent on our part to keep them from annexing. We basically said that really doesn't work that way. The statute says you can annex anything you want.
Yeah.
You know, that you can get people to vote on and so forth. So that ended up being a non-issue. We said that's not our intent. But we do have some concerns about the second part of that, which is the repayment to CRW for any assets co-opted by Oregon City, whether they be transmission lines or laterals, it doesn't really matter. It did cause, I think, both Commissioner Cummers and I to reflect on. A lot of the discussion was around whether or not we were getting due compensation as evidenced by the statutes for bonded indebtedness. We shared with them that, at least since I've been here, when we start talking about maintenance, we have never used bonded money. It's always been cash out of our general fund. And therefore, because we're using cash pay-as-you-go policy, that we would be interested in just compensation for all of our infrastructure. To make a long story short is they've agreed to do that, to reimburse us. And then we got into a discussion about, you know, appropriate compensation and some other fuzzy words. And at least in my opinion, they were fuzzy words. And we said, no, we want something a little bit more affirmative than that. So we decided that maybe an outside third party, technical person could come in and do the valuation. Because quite frankly, we may have pipes that neither they or us want, you know, and those we probably wouldn't be seeking, you know, any kind of reimbursement for. But as an organization, we have, whenever we've gone in to upgrade our system, particularly, well, actually anywhere, we've looked at what's the future requirements, and probably in all cases that I know of, we've upgraded the pipe. And we've also used a more durable pipe that may have a lifespan of 100 years. And if we use the 20-year depreciation schedule, there's 60 years, 80 years of revenue that can still be realized from that pipe. And if we're only settling for what our depreciated pipe is, we were at extreme disadvantage. So they've agreed to that. The other thing was the engineering study. They've agreed to that. So if what gets captured is what I just said, in a way that we can understand it without too much lawyering, and it's reduced to writing so that we have that, then I think we have avoided some expense. We certainly have on our part in terms of legal. They had 2 lawyers there who advised them that they would continue working on this until this actual agreement is signed. So we got that. So I think we had an eventful meeting, but we'll see, and we'll report back to the board. That's a document that's going to have to be signed by the board. The rate hearing budgeting issues, the board has just dealt with that. I need to apologize because in your binders or in your materials under A1, we provided you with a calendar of all major events related to budget and for rates from now through the end of the fiscal year. And we didn't note that. It's part of the manager's report. We didn't note that on the cover. We should have, so I apologize for that. The Clackamas River Water Supply Commission, we had a meeting there on February 10th. We talked about the activities that we have been involved in up to this point. We've had the Secretary of State filing, that's complete. We had the bylaws, those were presented and approved. There was a third item presented, was the biennial budget. I think Carol has addressed that issue. And then we also talked about budget committees, and those were selected for the commissioners. Sunrise members are Randy Ely, is that how you pronounce it? Yeah. Pete Crift and Marley Drake and Bill Blanis.
Bill is on the CRW side. Maybe the name wasn't familiar, so he got put up on that, but he's one of our budget committee members.
Okay, so Bill is, thank you, Karen, is CRW, Pat Russell and Cindy Lewis Wolfram. The fourth item was a presentation of the operating plan, and basically what we did there is lay out some of the elements that needed to be addressed, and I know that that issue is being worked now as we speak. We talked about a lot of those relationships would be captured in MOUs versus IDAs. The other thing that we're talking with is that Sunrise is in desperate need of changing their accounting software and their billing system, and they're going with a vendor by the name of Springbrook, which is a local Oregon vendor stationed in downtown. Springbrook visited here to look at our operations, to hear what our requirements are, and I believe tomorrow the staff and myself will be sitting down and listening to their presentation. None of that is an obligation to purchase, just to merely listen to what it is that they're going to be providing Sunrise and to determine how their system operates. The executive session on the 18th, you talked about the content of that meeting, so I won't address it here. We have had our first meeting with AFSCME. As you know, our contract terminates this year, and we will be meeting with them. They too have interest in what we're doing as it relates to the 190. We gave them an overview, shared with them what our objectives were, and hopefully put some of their concerns or fears to bed. But we'll be having our second meeting formal meeting with them on the 26th of March. The work session, the board has referenced that earlier, so I won't go through that. We all attended a Value of Water conference in Salem. Very good conference. And what I've done is I've put attachments in your folder if you want to go and review all of that. In our Water Resources Department, there's been a lot of work with our SCADA system, and we've been doing that in partnership with Sunrise. We now have, it's kind of a side issue, we now have completed the fiber link between our treatment plant and Sunrise, so that's now in place. The county was willing to provide that. I believe that was, what, $750, of which half of it will be paid by Sunrise. So that's in place.
Is there a recurring fee for that?
I don't know.
Just service fee,
Just a service fee that goes with that.
So there's a
$250.
recurring fee?
Yes,
Mhm.
yeah.
How much?
$250?
Huh?
$250 per month?
A month? Oh, okay.
Okay. So, one of the things that we kind of lucked out on when we had a vacancy about a year or so ago is that we were fortunate to hire an employee who is very talented at SCADA programming. And what that does is that it allows us, whereas before we had to go outside and hire a separate contractor and stuff, in addition to his daily duties, he's able now to program in real time. And that has saved us a lot of money to have that kind of capability inside. And I also believe that the Sunrise resource, I think, is retiring, as I recall. And so, so that gives us the ability to kind of cross-pollinate and really kind of marry these systems. So that's going to be good. And one of the things it does, we know, just at a minimum, we now have, well, we will have the ability that rather than having Sunrise, having people on standby, having us have people on standby, we can now look at both systems, okay, and do that with one person. That's, at least that's the objective, is to get to that point. So. The other thing that we've talked about, and something that I think the board should be aware of, in August, our plant will be 50 years of age. We think that that is an event period, and so staff and I are looking at what we can do in a public way that is positive with our ratepayers in terms of recognizing that event. But we'll be getting back to you more as we get closer to that. Let's see. I think that that's pretty much the end of my discussion. There is some issues that are occurring that I'd like to report on later with the NCCWC plant and some issues that they're having with their filtration system and how that might impact CRW. But I think it would be premature at this time to talk in more detail.
Just a quick question, what sort of filtration system do they have?
They have a direct filtration system and a membrane filtration system. It's the, I think you had shared with me, you've had some similar issues with the membrane system.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any questions? Now we're at our final public comment period, and one from the public wishing to testify. Seeing none, we'll go on to commission business. I remind the commissioner again to get your expense vouchers in so that they can handle them in a timely manner. Anything else?
I have nothing, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Without roll call, we'll adjourn.
Chair prerogative.